I don't. Okay. We are here with an updated tier list. We have not done a tier list since basically Season 3 started. So this is our first real update to our Season 3. I mean, this is our second tier list ever for Season 3, basically, is what I'm getting at. Now that we've seen a lot of scrims, we've seen pro games, top level rank play. We've got people in Grandmasters now. We've seen lots of level, a lot of different variances of top level play, you know, from, like I said, from ranked all the way up to these pro games with the top teams of pro games. And so we've kind of seen how a lot of these gods have fallen into place. So far, we're looking towards most gods being towards the strong side of the tier list compared to the weak. There's really not many that gods right now that are like, you can't play them in any role. We saw Ratatoskr actually get some good use coming into the solo lane. Not like Ratatoskr is the best god ever, but in the solo lane actually does just fine. Stuff like that compared to, we're still never going to see a Chang'e or whatever, you know. So Chang'e is going to be lower than Rat, obviously, because Rat's more competitive in the rank scene and competitive scene. So stuff like that. So that's how we're basically doing this. As we go through the tier list, we may be updating it. You know, we end up putting one god in A+, but then we look at another god and we're like, wait a second, this god's actually better than this god, and they're at A+, we move down the other god to A, bada bing, bada boom, right? So that's kind of how it's going to work. So we get right through this. Let's get started. I don't want anybody to panic. We're going to start with Agni. And Agni's fine. No rioting in the streets. Everything's fine. It's because Agni's been in A tier since the game has practically began. Except when he was like really OP at the start because there was one mage and it was him. Yeah, Agni's fine. You're not going to see a lot of Agni be played because a lot of the other mages are like really strong. But he's still a good god. So there you go. Grats. AMC recently saw a buff. They made his honey slow, instead of it scaling from 5 to 25%, when they put points into it, it is just 20% flat at all ranks starting at level 1. Yes, it's good for AMC. It is a buff. It's a step in the right direction. No, he doesn't have any getaway still. Yes, he still has to play ADC in the long lane. No, he's still not very good. Of course, the B always belongs in the B tier. Although, I wouldn't mind him being viable because AMC's a sick god. But it's unfortunate we don't get to see him. Akash is a god that I haven't seen since the Dirty Bubble build. People basically gave up on Pwash after you couldn't just run the stupid full health armor builds on him. And I don't think that makes him bad. But like, I have not played a single game of Pwash since Season 3 started. I have not played against a single Pwash since it started. I think half of you watching the game forgot it was even a god, even though he has some of the coolest skins in the game, like the alien one on the Nutcracker. But I'm going to put him down in B tier. If you're not seeing any play, the assumption has to be that you're not seeing play because you're not any good. All of a sudden, somebody finds a groundbreaking build for him, you know, next week, and then all of a sudden, Pwash isn't B tier. But if you're not getting played, obviously, you need something done to you, or people need to at least try something different on you. So, downwards towards the B tier. Amaterasu. So, she is a god that brings a lot of feelings to people. She brings a lot of emotion. A lot of people see Amaterasu and they go, GG, we lose. Get me out. Broken. So, she has good things and great things about her kit. So her ultimate's super strong and it's on a low cooldown. She's got okay clear and her 2 does pretty decent damage when it's built up. Her dash is meh. It's a silence for 1 second, but her dash is meh. And then the passive movement speed is really strong. The role you're going to see her in most likely is the solo. She can play jungle, and I've played her support, Shman the support, but she's a good counter to Guan in lane because you can silence the Talu Assault, but she's not groundbreaking. She's not going to carry a game by herself. She's a good, she's good just kind of all around. Honestly, though, she's balanced. She's actually a pretty good focal point of balance right now. If she gets behind it all, she's pretty useless. If she gets ahead, she can be, she can be a problem. But she's actually in a really good spot right now. She actually, to me right now is the Ao Kuang previously, where Ao Kuang was in a good spot, but people seem to play her and kind of die. They don't when people play AMA, at least in ranked, they don't seem to do very well. And I've got a feeling in my bone, somewhere inside, I feel like she's going to get the Ao Kuang treatment where it's like, this god wasn't performing very well, so we should increase. And it's like, no, they're fine right there. Right there is a good spot. That's a good spot. And her recently seeing a passive buff of 5 penetration, passively, bringing him from 15 to 20. Now, that's a big deal. First of all, he always had a great passive. 15 is a passive pen is awesome. Bringing it up to 20 is more awesome, especially early game when people don't have those physical defense items. You're almost doing true damage for the first couple of levels. So he's also seeing a lot of play. He's a very heavy early game ADC. The game has moved to be super early game focused. I mean, I'm surprised we're going to see more Thanatos is being played, because this is like in the early game. And her is A+. He is just above that focal point of balance. We're going to see him played, I think, quite a bit in the SPL. He's not a Huyi, but he's got good lane clear. He's got good damage. He has decent CC. He transitions well into the mid game. His late game is meh, but his early and mid game is super strong, and that's where almost all of the fighting is taking place right now. Anubis. So Anubis is actually not terrible. A lot of people think that he's terrible because he's Anubis and he's always been bad, right? Ever since basically the game has launched, outside of when Agni was good, the best. So he's as far as Anubis goes, the reason why he's actually not that bad right now is due to his excessive clear. Clear right now is very important. If you have the early clear, you don't necessarily need getaway skills. Think of Anubis like a Zeus, just not as good. Where you don't have mobility, but you do get the lane pressure almost no matter what. Because you get the lane pressure, that means you're getting mid-harpies. Because you're getting mid-harpies, that means you're a little bit ahead. He's not great, but he's not actually in that bad of a spot. If he got touched anywhere, I think he might end up being a little bit too strong. But I'm going to give him B+. I think you could make a argument that he is an A tier. But he's right in that A, B+ tier. He's right there. You could probably argue for either. For now, we're going to put him in B+. We'll see if that shifts around as we do other gods. Ao Kuang. So Ao Kuang is our first god that we're getting to. That is one of our excessively strong gods that we're going to see. I call it the 7. There is 7 gods right now that you're basically looking to pick and ban every game. And Ao Kuang is the first of those 7. We'll try to see if I can keep mentioning them as we go through the list, if I can remember. But he is a god, like I was talking about earlier with AMA. Ao Kuang was here. Okay, so Ao Kuang was an A tier, right? He was in this perfect spot where competitive players could really do damage on him and do a lot of damage, but new players were really struggling to play on Kuang. And so they gave him that passive buff. They're like, well, let's just give him a little bit more HP, a little bit more ability scaling, a little bit more regen, maybe some magic defense, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let's just sprinkle in a little bit of pepper and hit him with the pow. They gave him a little bit of salt, a little bit of spice up in there. And so now Quang is S tier. Should they revert the change to Ao Quang? Yes, they should. Ao Quang was perfectly fine where he was, and now he's in the top 7 gods in the game. So, there you go. There you go. What are you going to do? Just revert the change. That's exactly what you do, actually. I just gave you exactly what you do. So, that should be easy. You just hit the undo button. That's in Smite now. They have the undo button, so they just need to go over, just hit the undo on the Ao Quang, revert him back. Totally fun and balanced guy. Okay. Aphrodite. Aphrodite. So, Aphrodite is a healer, right? Sustain is actually very strong right now. Very underrated is how strong Sustain is. The problem is that mage Sustains are not good. So this is why. So think of Sustains right now. Sylvanas is actually not bad. His healing's pretty good. Guan Yu is getting banned. He's one of the 7. He's getting banned a lot. His heal is incredibly strong. All the solo laners being played right now are guys that have sustain. That's the only guys you're playing a solo. You're seeing Tiers, Guan Yu's, Ratatoskr. Why can he play Ratatoskr in the solo? Because Ratatoskr has incredible sustain. Things like that. So when you can get a little bit of that healing on your team, it makes a big difference right now to be able to do a little bit of poke, heal up, go back in the fight if they don't have sustain. The problem with Afro, of course, is now that you have actives really early in the game, you get a Weakening Curse level 1 and like GG Afro, no re, peace out, get out of here. Right down in B tier. You're just not going to see an Aphrodite getting played. It's just, you're not going to see it, man. You're just not going to see it. Apollo! Apollo's fine. This could be the first time in the history of Smite that I'm looking at Apollo and the words that I'm saying to you are, he's fine. Like, literally ever. I want you to think about think about where we've come from in Smite, dude. So Apollo, like, for the first 2 years of Smite was up here and he was like, oh, and then like, he got like a little bit. And then they were like, now let's bring it back up. And then they did a little bump. And then and then, oh my God, he's balanced. The dream. Yeah, there you go. Arachne. Poor Arachne. I don't know if people aren't giving her a chance. Obviously, I have a soft spot for Arachne. I'm not going to lie to you guys. She was my first god, really, that I got into. Like, people knew me for playing Arachne back in the day, way before I got into a competitive scene in Smite. I was that guy back in her old kit. Man, she is not getting any play. It's interesting because the game is so early focused with, the first 15 minutes of the game really being the majority of the game. Transitioning, our games are ending at 25, 30 minutes for the most part. If they go past that point, the games can open up. But really, you're going to see 80% of games ending by that 30-minute mark, or 31, 32 minutes. She's not the best option is the problem. I think it's not so much as Arachne isn't great as much as other people are great. A lot of our top 7s that we're looking at are junglers, and that's kind of the problem. So we're going to put her right here with Anubis. You want to play her before you play AMC, but, you're not really looking to play her that much. So it's not so much her fault as it is. It's just like all the other gods are stronger. Like her kit in itself, heal, attack speed steroid, a stun, a slow, a movement speed buff, getaway ultimate that can be used for initiation or damage. Like, her whole kit sounds good, and it is good. It's just not great. Ares sucks. So I think, I don't know how much I try to watch the SPL, all the games, at least for NA, because obviously I play in NA, so it's very important to me. I don't get to watch EU as much as I would like because I have to use that time to do other stuff, whether it be, whatever it may be. Ares, though, I watched a couple games, and I saw at least one game where EU picked Ares. I can't remember the team. But I remember looking at their comp and going, they have such a good comp. And then they picked Ares, and I said, damn, their comp sucks. The problem with Ares is he doesn't have any clear. And early game is so important right now, you have to get the clear. So why is clear so important? I'll explain it again. For the dual lane, if you get the clear, right? If you get the clear, which is dependent on if you get the lane first for the most part. Did you get the lane first? How do you get the lane first? Well, you had the better clear for the buff camps. How do you have the better clear for the buff camps? You have the better clear gods, right? That's how we go all the way back. So Ares doesn't clear the buff faster than any other support, right? He has the worst clear. So when you get to lane late, you're going to get to the lane late, and you have worse clear than their dual lane because you have Ares. So now, at about the 2-minute mark when the boars are respawning, they're going to clear the wave. They're going to go do your boars, and they're going to hit level 5 from the boars, and you're going to be level 4. Now, they can choose to either rotate to the mid and fight, or they can come back in lane and fight you, and you can't fight back because they have the level 5 advantage. Obviously, you can't fight without your ultimates. Ares will never have his ultimate before the enemy team, outside of like a 40-second rotation, and you get first blood on, you know, their dual lane somehow. But that's why he's not very good. I'm putting him down here with AMC. Artemis. Artemis is not trash. Shout outs. Shout outs to Artemis. Yo, she's not trash right now. She got a buff. Not a big buff. A little buff. An itty bitty buff. But a buff. They gave her 5% more attack speed on every tier of her steroid. So instead of starting at 35 and ending at 75%, it starts at 40 and ends at 80. Obviously, Tusky moves a lot faster. That was one of the patches they had done in the past for Artemis. So Tusky in teamfights actually goes bop, 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 but he's very effective in teamfights. The bigger buff for Artemis, which was indirect, kind of direct, I mean, they were kind of aiming at Artemis, is that they made Golden Bow more effective. So you can buy off the start Throwing Dagger, I believe is the name before Golden Bow, and it gives 50% damage to minions AoE of where your autos land. So Artemis always had a problem leveling her 3 and, you know, trying to clear the wave with that because it couldn't hit the whole wave. But now what you can do is you can level your 2 first on Artemis, get the Throwing Dagger, full clear waves. You clear faster than any other person except for like Neath as far as ADCs go with Throwing Dagger and leveling your 2 first. Now, you still don't have a getaway skill. You're still susceptible to ganks, but your clear is no longer an issue. And if you can get out of the early game, if you don't fall behind the early game, you're still the best late game hunter that Smite's ever had. Actually putting Artemis up here in A tier. I think that we will see several Artemises at some point once the hunters get comfortable with her in the days to come. Whether they have to build a comp around her. You have a Khepri Artemis lane. Khepri can keep the Artemis alive through the laning phase and bring her into the late game. Then you have a Khepri Artemis in the late game as G's, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you're going to see her being first, second, third pick. That's not going to happen. But she could be a late pick hunter that they build a team comp around. Especially if the enemy team doesn't have like a heavy dive comp. If they have a Thor or whatever, maybe not Artemis because he's just going to get dove over and over again. But, you know, they have something less aggressive, you know, especially if they run something... I don't know. They run a Hun Max or something where it's not so bad because you can just see immune the ult with your ult. Whatever. Okay. Athena. Athena's one of our 7 still. Athena is super strong. She's going to be probably the bottom edge of your best 7 gods in the game right now. She has incredible initiation potential, which is why she's always so highly rated, always has been, plus her rotation potential. Not to mention she has early game clear. Not to mention she can block auto attacks with a passive. Not to mention she has a slow, which is also a gap closer. It sounded like I just told you a really bloated kit, and I did. Now, luckily, I love Athena. The problem being is that she's just not quite like... She's not like top 3 god. She's like, you know, like that 5th, 6th type thing. So she's going to get through a lot of picking and banning phases because people are going to want to ban things like Quang and Athena, or Quang and Khepri and Kali. That's a lot of Ks. All the K gods are OP. They're all broken. Every single one. I don't know, actually. I can't think of any other one. But she's going to also be up here probably in this S tier. You're probably going to have all the top 7 gods up here in the S tier, because those are like your go-to gods. Maybe Kali's on a tier all on her own. Maybe. She'd probably be the only one. Moving forward, Willix. Willix is good. Good clear. Good CC. She's good. She does particularly well against Serket. And Serket is very in the meta right now. Super strong. And Serket actually does really well against Kali. We have a little triangle going there. But she's up here. She's balanced. When she gets ahead, a Willix can be one of the biggest pains in the ass to deal with because she actually transitions fairly well into the late game. But, you know, other than that, you're using her for counter picks. Maybe earlier in the game, you pick the Sobek for support and a tier for your solo laner. And you're like, well, we got 2 knockups. 3 knockups, technically, because Sobek has 2. Let's just pick a Willix so we can factor it in and make the synergy go together. So that's something you can do with her. Next up, we got Bacchus. Yo, Bacchus, not great. Good. Not great. Good. Bacchus as well in this A tier. So, Bacchus doesn't have the best lane clear, but what he does have is really good synergy right now with kind of where support builds can go in the aggressive manner. His level 5 fight has, of course, always been very strong. He has the capabilities with the drunk. It does a lot of AoE damage. It puts a crazy CC on you. You don't want to beads it. You don't, for the most part, like, you're not going to be like first picking your Bacchus, right? But he is a good pick, especially because of just it's the hard knockup, which is why Bacchus has always been fine. Little meta periods where he's kind of run off, but if you hit that hard knockup on 1 or 2 people, because you can't beat or Aegis a knockup, it allows you to take so much damage before you come out of it, and you can always combo that with the drunk right afterwards, and that's why he's always been so strong in team fights. Mid game is coming a little bit faster now than it used to, not fast enough for the likes of AMC, but fast enough for him to really turn on and get his damage online. So, Bacchusura had this strange like resurgence in ranked, where like people were playing Bacca for a couple days. They're like, maybe Bacca's good again. Bacca's not that great again. I haven't seen anybody trying to run like throwing dagger on him with butcher blades and see if they can like full clear waves, because that could maybe be a thing. But I'm not a solo laner. I'm not the one that needs to be trying that. So we're gonna go B for Bacca. B for Bacca. Hey, Bastet, another B god. Another B god. Bastet and Valona. Bastet's fine, actually. Bastet right now can be played in the solo lane. You're going to want to play her in the jungle. With the Bastet, she got a little bit better. Particularly just because Zeus got better. When Zeus gets in the meta, Bastet comes back in the meta. So 2 things with her. 1, she counters Zeus really hard. Why? Zeus obviously doesn't have a getaway skill. You cats on the Zeus. He has to like ult on himself, whatever. She can catch up to him. She can jump away. The cats spread out the chain lightning, so you can't just get chain lightning. It's going to go between all the cats. And obviously Zeus is very strong right now. We've seen a lot of times actually in the SPL so far already in week 1. The other thing is her split push is very strong. And she has a viable split push. You can't really Loki so much in competitive, but you can Bastet in competitive. And so she's basically that split push god for competitive that you can kind of get away with. And then we've got Valona. And I've got to run really quick. One sec. And I'm back. I figured we were in the bee gods, so I should get a banana. Okay. So, Valona. Valona has always been strong since the day of her release. She was ridiculously strong. Let's not kid ourselves. She's the most broken god to ever be released in Smite. Okay? So, let's try not to kid ourselves about that fact. But, she's always been in the meta. Valona is not probably the top solo laner, but top 3. Definitely top 3. So there's A+. Good clear. Tanky. Good initiation. Disarm. All that good stuff. Cabrakan. My boy Cabrakan is just like the worst. Like the worst. Like not good. Like bad. Like he's been bad and like he's bad. Like I love him. I love that god, but like just not good. You know? You could try to play him in the jungle or the solo lane. Solo lane, you're gonna get kicked out of your clear, right? You have to bash the ground to clear. You're just gonna get knocked out by tier or whatever. Jungle, you're just gonna bop the jungle creeps, which is like fun. Like it's fun to like hit the ground and stuff, but you know the creeps are just doing the tango right around your body, not taking any damage. Rip Fat Loki forever. Also, the cooldown nerf actually inadvertently kind of hurt Cabrakan, who was pretty reliant on the cooldown. Because he's not going to buy Chronos pendant, you know. Chalk. I see a lot of people, even competitively. I think it was more so in Europe than in NA. Trying to make Chalk a thing? And I'm not like trying to Debbie down on anybody's parade, but Chalk's not good. They gave his ult a lower cooldown recently, which is cool, but it doesn't really change the fact that why would you pick Chalk when you can pick Tyr, or Guan, or Valona? Kind of like Arachne syndrome. It's not that he's terrible. It's that, like, why would you pick him, though? I'm putting him down here in this B+. Like, he's the Arachne of solo lane. He's the Arachne of solo lane. Like, why would you pick Chalk? You wouldn't. You really wouldn't. Oh, Chang'e. Oh, Chang'e, dude. Just, I'm not gonna say that she's worse than these baseline gods down here, but like, man, Chang'e she still has no home. She needs a home, Hi-Rez. Hi-Rez, give her a home. She's been looking for a home for so long. She's got this pet bunny, and she's wearing this dress, and she's walking through the mud and the muck, and she can't find her husband, Woojer, because he's always on the other side of the map, and he's got a home, but Woojer says, Chang'e, you can't come over to my home because you're not tanky enough. And she's like, but I was like this for you. And he's like, stay over in the solo lane. And she's like, but I get killed in the solo lane. And Woojer's like, but you ain't coming back over here. I'll see you at 20 minutes, honey. So, that's the problem. That's the problem. Chiron. Alright. So Chiron is still good. He recently got a little bit of a nerf. A 40% slow on his ultimate now. So he goes into his ultimate, right? He goes into his ultimate, and he's like just a little bit slower. He's got a little bit slower movement speed, so you can hit him easier inside of his ultimate. It does affect him a little bit, but he's still going to be one of your top go-to hunters. Not to mention even the fact that he's pretty decent in the mid lane. And we saw somebody in Europe, I want to say, was it Yemen? I want to say maybe Yemen played Chiron mid and they ran a sole ADC on Emilito. And it worked out really well, obviously, because they're an amazing team, but like also because it works. So, there you go. Chronos. Chronos is very strong. He has Shmeh lane clear early. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. Obviously, he's not going to out lane clear an Isis, who actually got nerfed recently. But he's going to out lane clear a lot of people. So when you're looking at the Chronos, you've got to kind of factor in. You can run him ADC and mid. He works well both roles. His hyper game potential at late is insane, almost unparalleled, except for gods like Kali and Quang, which is why we're putting him A+. Chronos has his moments. He has his spot. I don't know if he's a pick every single game all the time, but his hyper carry potential is insane. You just have to make sure he doesn't get farmed in the first 5 minutes of the game when he's a little bit weaker. But once he gets that ultimate in place, and if he can be positioning correctly, and you can make sure you can ulti yourself around wherever you need to, you're going to have a really good time on Chronos. It's one of the first times Chronos has really been back in the meta. Partially because of Doomorb working so well on Chronos, because you get low. Oh, I ulti, I'm at full health again. Rip, I didn't lose my Doomorb stacks. So, you know what I'm saying? Cupid is not good. Cupid's better than AMC, but Cupid is not better than the other hunters. His early game is fine. His clear is fine. Big problem with Cupid is that beforehand with Cupid, you could ulti people, and if they didn't hit level 5 yet, they didn't have their beads or their Aegis, and you could kill them, right? And then you could try to get big off that. But you can't do that anymore because everybody has actives. And so it kind of killed Cupid inadvertently in Season 3 by giving everybody actives all the time. It kind of was the end of Cupid. So, rip Cupid. To be fair, nobody likes Cupid except for Shaywas. Shaywas played too much Cupid though. But rip Shaywas. He probably still plays Cupid and he probably still kills people because he knows Cupid so well. But regardless. Fenrir. I still got it. With the top hat. So, Fenrir we have seen actually not perform that well in SPL, I don't think. We saw DJ Pernicus play it against ALG, and he did the worst on his team. And we saw Adapting play Fenrir as well, and he also did the worst on his team. I think he might have been the only person to even die on his team. So, I'm not so sure whether it's that Fenrir is not performing well in this meta, because it seems like Fenrir should be doing really strong because of, the higher beads cooldown. Now, everybody does have beads. I would talk about earlier the problem with Cupid. But for now, I'm going to throw him into A tier. I have not seen any stellar performances right now with Fenrir that make me think, oh, man, we got to be picking that god all the time. But he's also not doing terribly. I mean, he's been winning, but it seems he's been winning a lot more because of just the teams around Fenrir has been winning, and not so much necessarily it's the Fenrir player making them win right now. Freya. I haven't seen a Freya since Season 3 started. Fun fact. Just like Alposh. I don't think I've played a single game with or against a Freya. Yeah, has anybody even seen a Freya? Does anybody even know what she looks like? What are her abilities? Without her being played, it's too hard to tell where she really should be. Putting her in B+, regardless of where she should be, she's better than AMC. But it's weird that we haven't even seen anybody like try to play her. I feel like with the pen helmet, she could be a thing. I feel the build the pen helmet, right? You go ADC Freya, pen boots, pen helmet. How can you lose a fight? Right? How do you lose a fight? I don't know. Maybe that'll work. Somebody try it. See, tell me how it goes. Geb. Geb is a fine support. And you know what we do with fine characters? We say, you are fine. Geb had previously been our... What do you want to say? Top 2 supports until, like, pretty much in the history of ever. Until Khepri came along, and then it was more Khepri and Athena. And then Season 3 came along, and it hurt Geb even more. The problem with Geb is that his early game is bad, right? His early game is very poor. His shield is still great, but you don't really have the shield for a while. His lane clear is just very okay. He doesn't bring the early mid game like a lot of the other supports do. He's super, super susceptible to ganks, especially with the gods that are in the meta. Quang destroys Geb. Kali destroys Geb. Chronos destroys Geb. He can get caught out of place very easy. His rollout is a mediocre getaway skill. It's better at initiating than it is at getting away because it has the charge up time on it. So you're just going to get CC'd right out of it or body blocked. And that's why he's A tier. Guan Yu. Guan Yu is crazy right now. You could argue that he's in the top 7 gods. And I would make that argument personally because of his heal. He's not on the same tier quite though as like Ao Kuang. But his capability to go, he has two rules, right? He can either go solo lane or support. Either way, fantastic. Either role he works very well in. His sustain is incredibly strong. He has good clear, whatever he needs to do. He has the ultimate, which of course has one of the highest base damages in the entire game if you hit it. And he works well with meditation. And meditation's in the meta right now because you can pop 5 meditations at the same time and get the full effect from all 5 meditations. So you should try that in some of your arena games and just full heal everybody in the entire team. Say 1, 2, 3 meditation. Poof, everybody fly. Hades. Hades is fine. He's not getting played at all. Yeah. Shmah. He's not getting played, which is why I kind of put him down here in this B+ tier. I think he's probably better than people think he is. He still has strong clear. He could get away with playing in the solo lane. He could get away with playing in the mid lane. There's just a lot of other strong picks right now, which is more of the reason why he's not getting played. A lot of this season is not so much... There's a lot of bad gods. There's just a lot of OP guys that are just like, we gotta get that one. We gotta get that one. It's like the differential between like the A+ to like A tier is like a lot more than it used to be in previous seasons. I think is what I'm trying to get at. Blah. Hebo's okay. Hebo has an issue where he doesn't have the early game at all. Like, he just has no way to actually get out of the early game. He gets super countered by things like Fenrir. He has a lot of problem with those issues. Late game is great. If you can get him to late game, nasty, dude. It's nasty. But you have a hard time getting in there. Hell, same thing with Aphrodite. You're never gonna get hell out of the early game. It's just one of those things where you're like, it just ain't gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? So you have to just be careful with that. If you don't do it, I mean, you're gonna get weakening curse. Is the thing. Like, the weakening curse is the reason why all these people are having, a hard time. Just because you get the weakening curse, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're dead early game. And if you're dead early game, you're never gonna make the late game. So, Hercules is good, man. He is totally sweet. He's chilling out. He's having a good time. He's pumping the iron. He's pulling people and stunning people. He's got rocks. He got a little itty bitty buff lately. Good job, Herc. You'll be just fine in the solo lane. Hooyee. We're back to our major gods. Hooyee in the top tier. You're going to see him a lot of the time banned when the team is first pick. Because teams aren't really first picking Hooyee, but they're second picking Hooyee. So a lot of the times, first pick is going to ban him, and then second pick is going to take him if they don't ban him. So that's why you kind of get forced into the ban. Hooyee always gets to lane first because when you get the Hooyee bounces, he can triple bounce in the back harpies, and he can triple bounce in the boars, and then you just full clear. And you can't stop that because it's like 300 damage or something insane. Who nuts is fine. Good CC, decent clear. All right, crit chance, getaway skill, catch up, etc. He's fine. Good job for Hunbats. Good for him in the jungle. He only can play the jungle, which is one thing about him. He's not really viable in any other role, but outside of that. So Isis. Isis just got nerfed recently. She got a 40% scaling nerf. It was 10% on a Wingas. Her Wingas went from 40% to 30% scaling, but because the skill procs 4 times, that's 40% overall scaling. Doesn't affect her early game clear. Doesn't affect a lot about her character. I've still got her as one of the top gods of the week, and I expect to see a lot of Isis. But maybe this is the start of the downfall of Isis as we start to see some other gods come into the meta, like Raijin. Janus is great. He's still doing Janus things. Because of the cooldown nerfs, he still has, obviously Janus really loved the cooldown boots into Chronos Pendant. Full 40% cooldown with Season 3. That's not a thing. You can do cooldown boots into Chronos Pendant, then you only got 30% cooldown. But that doesn't mean he's not getting, any less benefit from Pen Helmet and Pen Boots than anybody else's. Kali is arguably the best god in the game, but so is a couple of these people up in this tier. So she's up there in our top gods. Now she does have counters now. Serket is a good counter to Kali as far as jungle goes. Kumba in the support role does very well against Kali because you can mess her, give her the attack speed slow, ult her in the air when she ults, stuff like that. But when Kali turns on, man, you best close your eyes and duck and cover because she coming at you. Kepri, bada bing, bada boom. Up here in our top 7 picks that you're gonna see banned and taken the most. Incredible clear in the dual lane. No support can outclear Kepri except for an Odin. But if you play the matchup really correct, you can pluck Odin out of his jump combo and he doesn't get the damage off, and then you can just kill the Odin. It's not easy to do, but it's possible to do. Capri's been nerfed every single patch for the history of ever, and he is still an S tier. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Literally every patch in the history of ever. In the history of ever. And he's still in the top gods. Tolkien, you are not great. You can tornado the wave, which is cool. You got a slow, which is nice. You can slither around like a snake. You can summon a big snake that's never going to hit anybody. Ever. Because it's like, bro, and everybody's like, I wonder what that could be. You just don't pay attention to me. I'm coming. And then it hits the ground over here, and it's like coming towards you. And you're like, what do I? Oh, I have Aegis. So can I find my Aegis button? I'm gonna take a bite of this apple and okay, there. Okay, Aegis. You're never gonna hit by a coconut, ever. If you do, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Kumbhakarna. This is delicious apple. This is a good season for Kumbha. CC, obviously, being very strong this season, has given rise to Kumbha being a lot more effective in the support role. And if you haven't played Sunder Kumbha Solo, I'd like to tell you to try. But Kuma's in this A+ tier. Yes, Kuma's better than Geb right now, for the most part. Geb is better at, keeping a particular teammate alive with, the shield. But Kumba is, first of all, way better at countering Kali. Kumba actually does well against Kali. But he has good clear with his dash, right? He has great damage with his ulti, which is also a great setup. The Mez is extremely strong. He has the root, which is, roots don't get DR'd in Smite. So the root is incredibly strong. He has 3 CC abilities in his kit out of his 4 abilities. And then, of course, his passive is really great against Outquang, because if you get eaten in Outquang, you still go on your passive. He also happens to be, so now he's also good against both of the top tier junglers. Loki. If this was a strictly ranked tier list, I'd be like, Loki. I feel like Loki wins every single game he's in, and he doesn't. I've been against Lokis that are 0, 10 and 0, and still win the game because they do 14k tower damage. Get out of my life. But it's not a strictly ranked tier list. Loki's okay. I don't know if you're gonna ever get away with a Loki inside of a competitive match because of the way that he's so weak early game. But in a ranked match, you can get away with the Loki because people aren't really going to gank you. And you're going to be totally fine. You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Just kill the Loki. Don't let him split push. You're going to be fine. In competitive, it won't work because people can just deal with it and communicate. But in ranked, it's harder, especially if your team's not encouraged to deal with a split pushing Loki. Medusa. Medusa's good. She's good, man. She's a good hunter. She's a good hunter. She has a good ult. She has good damage. She has a good clear. She's not the best. She's not Hu Yi. She's not Chiron. You compare her with Athena and you get the taunt into which is awesome. But she's good. Go for it. Play Medusa, man. Have a good time. Have a good time with Medusa. Win your lane. Pair yourself with a Capri. Get a pluck into a pluck. Have some fun. Mercury. Haven't seen a lot of Mercury play lately. I feel like we should be seeing more Mercury play, but we're not. Golden Bow recently with the change. Maybe Mercury comes into style as a ADC. Maybe maybe just an ADC. Because in the jungle you still need the Boomer's Mask, but in the ADC role you can just go right into the Golden Dagger or Throwing Dagger into Golden Bow. But So far, Mercury play has been lackluster this season. Regardless of whether it's because he's not great, it's more because, oh, look it, there's a collie. Dead. Neith. Neith is fine. Neith is going to do what Neith has always done. You can get away with Neith in the mid lane, although she's not the strongest in the mid lane right now because mages are pretty good right now, especially with that Dynasty Plate Helm build going around. Sure, she can ulti across the map, and that's great, but like people probably have their Aegis up or something. Yeah, she's fine. She's fine. You can play her mid or ADC. There you go, Graps. Nemesis. So Nemesis probably hasn't had the best performances, I think. I only can think of a couple games where Nem was played in SPL so far. And she hasn't had the most standout performances that you would like to see. Most of them, I think, were not so strong. But I don't know. I don't think it's so much a testament to Nemesis herself. I don't think she's terrible, but maybe she's not great. I think she could probably see some effectiveness going into the right team compositions, going in with the right plans, against the right team comps. Maybe a lot of things have to align, but that ultimate can be very strong. It always has been. It does well against gods like Zeus that have no mobility, so then they just instantly die. But then again, you can just build Wing Blade, give or take. But then you can maybe kick it. Dynasty play Helm, you force them off their build. Like, there's a lot of things to think about. But as of right now, she's just below meta. Nezha. Not sure if we've seen much Nezha play. Every once in a while you see him in ranked. Nezha is actually fine right now. You can get away with Nezha. The reason why Nezha is pretty good, not great, but fine right now, is the fact that his early game is strong. The ring toss is great clear. The AoE auto attack chain is great clear. Level 5, insane amount of damage if you can land your ultimate, which is also great setup if you have, say, a Ryzen or a Poseidon or whatever middle. Isis middle. So yeah, very squishy, but the Lotus Prince is not doing too bad right now. Not doing too bad. Nox! Schmah. Nox is schmah. She's schmah. You can land her abilities. Cool. Her abilities are too hard to land. Nuwa is fine. Nuwa is right in the meta. If you look at a performance of like MLC Stealth, you're going to be like, Nuwa OP, and then you go to your rank game, and you're like, damn, that girl sucks. There's another bug on my wall. It's bugging me. Regardless, she's fine. Late game, Nuwa is great. The problem is early game, she's not great. Late game, great. Early game, meh. Late game, great. Early game, meh. Okay. Odin. Odin is A+ right now. So, Odin, his ultimate, right? His ultimate's insane. It's absolutely crazy. When they changed that ult, they made it a second longer, and he can get out of the cage now. Odin is viable in 3 positions. Solo lane, jungle, and support. We've seen some incredible Odin play from Panda Viande in the support role. We saw Cuvo Fred in Europe play it in the jungle. I think we've seen Maddie play it in the solo lane. It's working in all roles and firing in all cylinders. Hide your kids, hide your wife, because Odin's caging everybody out there. Osiris. Osiris is fine. The problem with Osiris being fine is right now we have Odin up here, we got Valona up here, we got Guan Yu up here. We haven't even gotten to Tyr yet, and he's up here. So Osiris is fine, but he's just not as strong as the other gods. He's just not as strong. Poseidon is balanced. The big problem with Poseidon right now is you got Aegis. Poseidon's big thing and why he came pretty strong for a while is because you would hit level 5 before the enemy because you had better clear because he's Poseidon. And then you would Kraken him because you had level 5 and you had a Kraken. And they couldn't get away from it because they haven't backed yet. They haven't bought beads or Aegis. But you have beads and Aegis this season. And so, Drat. But he still has great early game clear that's almost uncontested outside of Isis and Raijin. Only 2 guys that are really going to out-clear him in the mid lane. So, you have that going for you. Ra has had opportunities this season to, like, come on in. It was like there's been, like, doors opening, and you're like, if I could just find my way through, like, if I could just, like, stick my head over here, I might be able to get into the meta. And he can't poke his head in. He's like, I got heal, I got damage, my passive got buffed, I can just, like, zoom across the map, but I got slow, but, like, Zeus is in the meta. I'm more mobile than Zeus, but he doesn't have a big AoE ult, so that's going to be a big problem for him down there in the B+ tier because of that issue. Moving on, we have Raijin. Obviously seeing a lot of play because he's the newest competitive god. Is not seeing great performance. Played quite a bit. Not poor performance. Okay performance. We've seen him played well elsewhere. Like, you know, he does great in ranked. And everybody thinks he's OP and casual queues are like, Raijin, he's broken. Pick him every game. But he's actually balanced. So, you know, fight me. But Raijin's actually balanced. His ultimate can do incredible amounts of damage, but it also makes him incredibly susceptible to dying. Rom is one of the better ADCs right now. Rom's clear was substantially helped by the recent buff to his astral arrows. What they did was they took a little bit of mana cost off of it, and they reduced the cooldown in which it comes back online. So I believe it's 2 seconds, which means your astral arrows are up more, which means you can full clear the wave more, which means you're not using as much mana to do that, so you can have more mana to use things like your ultimate and your steroid. Very strong clear. He also has a great jungle camp clear because you can astral arrows through both the camps and hit him at the same time. Well, Ratatasker is where he's not in S for squirrel. Ratatasker is actually probably fine. Maybe Ratatasker needs a little bit of a touch. Maybe a little bit here, a little bit there. We know Ratatasker is getting completely revamped. But he works out fine. Ratatasker might even be A tier in the solo lane. But, you know, what are you going to do? He's close. He is moving up in the world. He's actually not terrible. I'm not saying he's easy to play, but I'm saying when he gets played, when you build the Emerald Acorn like you should be, when you build him sustain and cooldown, you actually do just dandy. Raven is balanced. Raven's fine. Raven went from, I'm broken, I'm still broken, I'm fine. He had like the perfect series of changes. Broken, a little bit, I'm good. He's in a great place. You're not going to see Raven that much anymore because there's a lot of gods above him that are better. He doesn't have as strong sustain as Guan Yu and Tyr do. But, you know, he's fine. You know who's also fine is Scylla. Scylla's also fine. Look at all these balanced gods. And all these gods around the balance. That's good. We got a lot of gods in the middle, which is where we want to see them. Serket's broken, though. So let's go ahead and add another jungler to our broken list. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 gods in our top tier right now. There's your banned and pick god you're going to see all the time. Why is Serket there? Because Serket just got buffed because Hi-Rez said, you know what? Serket has been in the meta for forever. And, you know, we nerfed her a little bit. And then, you know, she became balanced. And then we were like, but balance is, like, not that fun. And, like, people like Serket. She's like, I'm jumping over here, and I'm dashing over here, and I'm one-shotting here, and I'm ulting you there, and you blew up, and you hit all your creeps, and your creeps blew up, and that hit your ADC blew up, the bleed hit the tower blew up, the Titan explodes. So, let's just bring her back and make her one of the best gods in the game again, because why not? Scotty's new, so we haven't really seen her anywhere. So we don't have to, I guess, worry too much about her. But as far as I'm concerned right now, I'm going to throw her up here in this A+ tier. She doesn't lose 1v1s. She doesn't lose to anything in split pushing. She's the best split pusher in the game. And, yeah. Easily gankable, but she doesn't lose any 1v1s in the hunter role. Because you just throw Calder and somebody Calder body blocks for you. You ulti, he can't die while he's body blocking. There you go. Sobek's strong. Sobek's strong, but he's not the strongest. His lane pressure is strong just because you always have the threat of the pluck. You're not going to see him anywhere else besides support anymore. He used to be a solo lane god as well, but not anymore. His clear is way too trash for that. But you're not going to see him picked over Athena, Capri. Definitely ever. You will see him picked instead of Kumakarna in the situation of Kuma's a little bit more defensive and Sobek's a little more aggressive. Just a little bit of a trade there. Little bit of a trade there. Soul is still very strong. Soul can be played in ADC and mid role. You could probably get away with her in solo, but you shouldn't be playing her solo. ADC and mid. Very strong in both roles. Extraordinary clear. Of course, works well with do more, but you don't even have to go do more. You could go in the ADC role. It actually works great to go the Dynasty Helm on her. Because why? Because you get physical protections. And what are you going against? You're going against an ADC. Mage solos. By mage solos, I mean mage ADC. That's become Shing? Mage ADC's a thing? Question mark. Moving on. Wukong! Wukong just got a little bit of a buff. He got like plus 5 HP at level 1. So congratulations to Wukong. Wukong's actually fine. You'll see him every once in a while played in the solo lane. You could probably see him every once in a while played in the support role. And that's because Wukong is fine. You won't see him often though because he's not great. That should be pretty straightforward. Professor Vanis! Professor Vanis! Professor Vanis. Not terrible right now. I used to think that maybe he would be one of the worst supports this season, but as it turns out, because everything is so early game focused, and Sylvanas' early game pressure is unstoppable, and if you haven't played Mage Sylvanas, I'm telling you right now, go in your casual game. Pick Sylvanas. Grab Sunder as your active. Go Mage. You get Pen Boots, and you get yourself your Dynasty Helm and your third item Soul Reaver, and teach people about Mage Sylvanas because it's coming to an SPL near you. But Sylvanas is actually doing fine right now. He can work both in the mid lane and the support role, and in the solo lane. Shoutouts to the creator of this website. I 1v1'd you. You got plugged in the tower. He knows what I'm talking about. That's alright. Much love. Sylvanas OP. Broken. He's not broken, but like, it's fun. And like, he's fine. Thanatos. Thanatos, a god that I thought would see more play this season. Hasn't yet, but Thanatos is actually fine. Thanatos can do a lot of damage. Early game, we've only seen him play it a couple times. We need to see some more play with Thanatos before we kind of, judge him too much. But as of right now, he's fine. SPL is soon, so I gotta speed it up. I've been trying to speed it up. Thor, always been a little bit better than fine. He doesn't do well against Kali, Kali, and he doesn't really do well against Serket, so he can be a kind of a weird place there because like the top junglers kind of counter Thor. But for the most part, if they're getting banned out, you're going to see a lot of Thor still. Also, Thanatos with Sunder, ulti, Sunder, Scythe. It feels bad if you're getting hit by it, though, which is always me. I'm never the Thanatos. I can't Thanatos support. Or can I? I said I had to hurry up. Tier. Tier is one of your top solo laners. Tier. Solo lane. Like I said, sustain is in the meta. Obviously, Tier goes into power stance. He goes, hi-ya! And then he full heals. And then 4 seconds later, he goes, hi-ya! And he full heals. So there you go. But that's pretty much the only role that he can really play in. Woojer saw a little buff recently. He did fine with it. He's still not going to be picked more than you're seeing your Huyis or your Chirons. But he could be a situational pick that you see coming in. But I really don't expect to see him that much, even with that change. I don't, at least of right now, I just don't see it going that way. Vemana, we got another A+ god right up here in the top. Vemana's got full clear here from the solo lane. Level 3. He has an ultimate that has sustain. He's got good rotation speed because of his 1. He's got good damage, and of course he works well with Frostbound. And wouldn't we all like to build Frostbound, because we would all like to be solo laners and be 5 levels ahead of the enemies at any given time and be able to slow with our auto attacks. Solo lanes, give me the Tiggers. The Tiggers all over. Give me some Tiggers in chat. All the Tiggers. Vulcan actually is balanced right now. A lot of people, maybe Vulcan's been bad in the past, and he has been bad in the past. This recent change only helped Vulcan. The recent increase in how strong Odin is has only helped Vulcan, because that means Vulcan can just ultimate in the cage. His damage is super strong right now. He works well with the current mage builds. And you're going to see a lot of these immobile mages really high, doing well in the meta right now. These mages without escapes, you know. Kind of the agonies got pushed a little bit aside, and you're looking at, like, you know, Isis and Zeus's and Chronoses. Xbalanque sucks. Don't worry about Xbalanque. I'm not even going to explain it. Don't worry about playing him. Xing Ten, don't worry about playing him. Don't worry about it. You don't have clear. You don't have a life. You don't have a role. You don't have friends. Don't worry about it. Ymir is here. We're going to see a lot of Ymir this season because he's got a lot of early game pressure. I have a feeling that we're going to see a whole lot of iRaffer playing a whole bunch of Ymir and kicking a whole lot of ass and taking a whole lot of names. But he's still hard to play as an actual god because of how immobile he is as a support. And you can get caught out very easy. And so your positioning has to be on point. On point. Zeus, one of our best mages in the game right now, only helped by the fact that he was recently buffed, and his Aegis, which is his 2, no longer knocks back minions, which you might think is a nerf, but is in fact a buff, because now he can full clear the wave. He used to clear back the minions, they would spread out, but now he can just auto attack the shield and be bada bing, bada boom. And finishing up, we have Zhong Kui, who is perfectly balanced right now. Go the new build on Zhong Kui. Run the Dynasty Plate Helm. It's actually super strong because you get the true damage early game with the pen boots and the helmet, and then you can go ahead and get that incredible damage off with your ultimate starting at about that 9-minute mark. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for everybody that supports. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you for those of you that subscribe. Don't forget to enter into, guys, our computer giveaway that we have. You can enter completely free. You can either go to the stream and check out the channel, look in the panels, or type an ! computer. Or if you're watching here on YouTube, guys, look down in the description and I will have a link there for you for the Gleam giveaway. You can enter completely free, guys, giving away my entire computer. You could win it. It's capable of streaming this video. It's capable to do whatever you need. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, have a twitchin' day, y'all.